Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday testimonial. I am so glad to have you all here this evening. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Nicole. I've been with Plexus for 3 years now, and I have seen incredible results not only in myself and my family, my friends, and the whole Plexus community. It is amazing how some simple but yet very complex ingredients are formulated to help everyone in so many different ways. Before we kick it off, I just wanted to do a little note that Plexus products, they're not intended to diagnose, not intended to treat, cure, or prevent any disease. It works different for everyone. And when we're consistent, we have incredible results. So no further ado, we're going to kick the microphone over to Miss Camry, and I haven't heard her story yet, but she is going to share.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm so excited to share. This is my first time sharing. So forgive me if I'm looking to the side. I just wrote down some notes so I don't forget key points about my story. So my story starts in 2015 when I started high school. I was a freshman and I was healthy up until then, but I just randomly started getting migraines. I went to the doctors and they said that it was probably stress induced because I was just starting high school. It was a stressful time. I wasn't used to the workload, stuff like that. So I was trying to manage my stress for a few months, and then they started getting worse. I was having 5 or 6 migraines a week. I was sensitive to sound, smells, lights, literally everything. I was constantly nauseous and was going to bed as soon as I got home from school. So I went back to the doctors and they thought it was a food allergy. So they had me cut out basically everything. I couldn't eat dairy or sugar or gluten or anything for a long time, and nothing improved. I was still really sick. So we went back again, and this time they sent me to a neurologist, and he didn't really look too much into it. He just immediately started prescribing different medications, and they would help for a little while. I would see some relief, maybe 3 or 4 migraines instead of 5 or 6 a week, but I still wasn't feeling super great. And obviously, I was cheering at the time. I was in band and full-time high school student and trying to work. So having 3 or 4 migraines a week was kind of miserable. So we kept trying tons of different medications. I was on like 4 or 5 at one point, and I would see some relief, but the side effects weren't really worth it. I was constantly falling asleep in school because I couldn't even stay awake. They made me so tired. My legs were swelling up for I have no clue what reason. One of them made me so nauseous, like I was just sick and I couldn't eat for a long time. So then that was like a 3-year period that all that happened. Then my senior year, I went to the neurologist again and was like, hey, I'm still feeling sick. My migraines at this point were getting worse. I was back to 5 or 6 days a week. And I had some prescription painkillers that they gave me to kind of manage them when I started to get a migraine. And at this point, those weren't working. I had taken several trips to the ER because I couldn't get my pain under control. So they basically told me when I went back that they didn't have anything else for me to try, and this was just going to be my life. So I was kind of devastated. I was a senior in high school. I was getting ready to go off to college. And I was like, man, I can't go to college like this, being sick all the time. Like, I'm never going to get anything done. That's when one of my friends started posting about Plexus. And at first I was like, okay, this is kind of crazy. So I went to one of her parties that she was having with my mom. And we were just going to try it for my sister. She was having some issues with her stomach. So my mom bought triplex and she decided she was going to try it for my sister. And I was like, oh, just for fun, I'm going to try it. And within a couple of months, my migraines were starting to improve. And sorry, I forgot where I was in my story. So within a couple of months, my migraines are starting to improve. And now it's been almost 2 years, and I have one migraine maybe every 3 months. So Lexus has really changed my life. Yeah, that's really my story.
Oh, I'm muted. Oh, dear goodness. I'm so sorry. All right. Back to what I was asking you, Camry. I want to say that's an incredible journey that you went through, being so young and having to be on so many meds and all those side effects that gave you. That's not fun. And so you started the triplex, which is our slim, our probio 5, the probiotic, and then the bio cleanse, which is our magnesium vitamin C blend. And you said, how soon were you seeing results, and how much down did your migraines go?
It was in like a month or so. They were down to like 3 or 4, and then a couple months later, it was down to like 2. And then I originally wasn't doing Slim, I was just doing Probio 5 and Bio Cleanse.
Yeah.
Then I had a meeting with my upline, and she suggested I add Slim. And then that's when things really changed.
Nice. That's exciting. I'm so happy for you. Yeah, look at that smile. You're such a beautiful smile. All right, thank you so much, Camry. All right, so I'm going to pass the mic over to Miss Amanda. She also has gone through the recovery of migraines, but she's going to be talking about something a little different tonight. So she can relate with you, Camry, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh, yes, I could totally relate. I'm like, yep, I hear ya. I had my first migraine when I was 12, and the doctors, they all kept saying the same thing. It's stress, it's hormones, it's this. And I started with birth control when I was like, I want to say they put me on my first birth control pill when I was 13, and it was supposedly to help me with my migraines. And then as like 13, 14 kicked in, and that's where I'm going to kind of lead with tonight. I started with my period, and every time I'd have my period, my migraines, were horrific. So I started going to the doctor more and more frequently because my mom started noticing that I was very pale. I was complaining about being in pain all the time, like in my stomach, and then, just with my head and everything. So they had me on, I want to say from the time I was 13 to 15, I had tried 12 different types of birth control. And because I would have a reaction every single time I would take a pill, and it was horrific. But I was desperate because basically my hormones were so out of whack. Um, and obviously the birth control pills played a huge role in that. But it was this, like, then we didn't really know a lot about gut health. We didn't really know a lot about, the connection between the brain and the gut. So it was just try this pill, try this pill. By the time I was 15, I was a freshman in high school, and I started missing a lot of school because my periods were so bad that I was going through like several outfits every single day because I was just bleeding so heavy. And my pain got so out of control that they actually hospitalized me several times in high school, because they just thought like something else is wrong. They never associated with it, with birth control or with periods or migraines. So I had my first laparoscopy when I was 15. Since then, I've had 12 laparoscopies. I've had my right ovary removed. I've had my right tube removed. I've had 7 cysts that have been bigger than a grapefruit removed from my ovaries. And I was going through pelvic floor rehab for quite a while. They thought, maybe after I had my tube and ovary removed, they thought, okay, maybe some, pelvic floor rehab, let's do some PT. They wanted to do injections into my stomach because nothing else was working. And that's when I said, no, like I can't do any more injections. I can't do any more pills. I'd had my gallbladder removed after that because I still kept getting all these periods. And during that time, I had become anemic. I ended up in the ER several times because I was passing out. I actually had to get done working at one point because I was too much of a liability. I had completely blacked out while I was on the floor. I was a manager at Maurice's, and it was just me and another girl. And it was, 8 o'clock at night, and I had nothing, like no symptoms, no signs. I was on my period. And yes, I was bleeding heavy, but there was no rhyme or reason why it happened. I just blacked out. Next thing I remember, I woke up in the hospital. My husband was there and he told me what happened. So after that, I started really going to the doctors more. I was pushing, like something is going on. And they had told me, this is your life. You've been dealing with this since you were, 13 years old. And, we can try patches, or we can try injections. We can try more birth control. We can, or we can do an ablation. And you will have no chance of having any more kids. And this was when I was like 28, 29. And I said, this is crazy. Because even when I was like 19 and 20, they were telling me I would never be able to have kids because of how bad my periods were and just how bad my hormones were. And I was just completely out of whack, and luckily, thankfully, I do have 2 kids. But I was at the verge of a full hysterectomy before I had heard about plexus, because I had tried everything and I prayed. And my husband's like, you can't keep doing this. You can't live like this. The iron pills weren't working, either getting off all the birth control. It was causing my migraines to just get out of control. So it was like this vicious cycle I was living in every day. My kids knew if we traveled somewhere, I would have to pack extra clothes if I was ever on my period. Half the time I wouldn't travel because it was so bad. I couldn't work out. I couldn't walk. I couldn't, there were days where I would just be bedridden because the pain in my back was so bad. The pain in my stomach was bad. And if I walked, it was, just that heavy bleeding to the point where you were miserable, and that was my life. And then I had said, I'd reached a point. I said, I can't live like this. I need a hysterectomy. So I had the conversation. I had my date set up. It was scheduled for April of 2017. And I joined Plexus the end of February of 2017. And I said, I'll try it. At first I had tried it, or I wanted to try it because I was also dealing with a lot of pain in my hands. And I said, oh, I just need a little help. Like, I didn't tell my upline everything that was going on. I just said, I need a little help with migraines. And yeah, I have aches and pains. I never in a million years thought this would help with my hormones, with feeling like I was going to, flip out on my husband or my kids, because let's face it, like when you're miserable to everybody and it sucks. And I was so sick and tired of feeling like crap. I was tired of just, settling. And that's how I felt. Like my kids were like, Mom, you're grumpy all the time. My husband's like, you're miserable. You can't do anything. You don't want to be around anyone. If you are around, like, you're a witch. And that's putting it very nicely. And I knew, like, I would cry all the time because I'm like, I am so miserable. And it wasn't just, a week thing. Like my cycles, if you want to call them a cycle, it wasn't a cycle. I was bleeding like 18 to 24 days a month. And they just thought, that's your life, and that's so unacceptable. That's not your life. That's not the life I wanted. I was not living. So I started the end of February And by March, I noticed that I hadn't bled. Like it was the craziest thing. And the end of March is when I actually had my first normal period, to the point where I had just like I went through just normal pads. And I was hysterical. I'm like, Fred, like, what if this is the plexus stuff? And he's like, well, you got to calm down. Like, you've only been on it for a month. I'm like, I know, but what if? So I said, I'm just going to reschedule my hysterectomy just in case. I said, I'll give it 3 months. And then, here I am 4 years later. I have like 3 to 4 days where I have very light bleeding. I have no cramps. I have no of like the hormone imbalance, where you're like needing salt and sugar, like your life depended on it. Nope, I don't have that. Like, I know when I'm going to start. I know when I'm going to end. I have no pain. I'm not anemic anymore. I don't have those moods that go up and down. I mean, I'm like a whole different person. And that's really quick summarized. There's a lot of other stuff going on, but I just feel balanced, if that makes sense. Like, my mind feels like it's in a good place. My stomach is in a good place. And my daughter, she's 13, and I get to share these products with her. And she's a young woman now too, and she's like, Mama, how come everyone used to talk about cramps? What is that? Like, she doesn't even know what cramps are. How lucky is she? And it's just been such a blessing all the way around for our family. So that's kind of my quick version of my hot mess self.
We have chapters of Amanda's story.
Yes.
Yes. That is amazing, Amanda. I'm thinking about, I knew that your menses were awful, but I didn't realize like how severe they were. And it's like it's more than a 180, like what
Oh
your
gosh.
body
Yeah.
has.
Yeah. My doctors were flabbergasted. When I called my my surgeon, she's like, what do you mean you're canceling? She's like, Amanda, you can't live like this. And I told her, I said I had a regular cycle, and she didn't believe me. Like, she wanted me in her office. I had to do all kinds of testing to assure her that I wasn't just backing out out of fear. And then I had a 6-month follow-up, and I said, things are going awesome. And she was in shock. And she's like, keep taking it. Do not stop. Like, she was all on board. So that was pretty amazing.
That is amazing. It's really nice to have a provider that cares about you and then realize like, oh, wow, yeah,
Yeah,
this is what you're doing is obviously making a huge difference.
definitely.
Yeah,
So thankful.
it is. And yeah, Sophia is very lucky that she doesn't know what period cramps are. So
Yeah, when she said that, I'm like, seriously? I'm like, is this real life?
I think that's wonderful news.
I do too. I'm so happy for her. I pray that it continues like this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so we're going to hand the mic over to Miss Lori. Here you go, girl.
Hi, everybody. So I'm going to talk tonight about sugar addiction. And for me, I feel like it started when I was a little girl. I know my mom would make desserts, and I always had the feeling that I wanted extra. I always wanted extra. So that always went on. It always happened. And when I was about 17, I couldn't, as most kids, you're anxious to get out on your own and everything. And I remember having the thought that I can't wait until I'm out on my own, and then I can eat what I want. If I want to eat 2 ice cream sandwiches at night, I can do it. I can eat all the junk I want. So then I graduated and I went to college, and I gained the freshman 15. And, being on your own and going to the cafeteria and having all those food choices, and it was really easy to put the weight on. So then I graduated and I got married. And during that time, well, shortly afterwards, my husband, we owned a restaurant, and 5 years later, our first child was born. And I remember one time my husband called me and asked if he wanted me to have him bring home anything for myself. And I said, well, I don't know, do you have any suggestions? And he said, well, we have homemade blueberry pie here. And that is like one of my all-time favorites. So I said, well, yeah, that'd be great. I would love a piece, of pie. Well, instead of bringing me home a slice, he brought me home the whole pie. And I was in seventh heaven. I just thought that was the best. So that went on and on. But as I got older, I started having, aches and pains and joint pain and, all the things. But I would attribute that to, if I hadn't had, blame it on everything else other than, sugar. So I remember I would go grocery. I think it started about that time. I would go grocery shopping and I'd buy a candy bar for the ride home. And then I would buy a bag of candy for my family. And a lot of times I would buy a bag for myself and stash it. That was just my, private stash. But then along came Plexus, thankfully. But for me, I didn't join Plexus to lose weight. I still continued eating as I was. I was still eating the sugar, even though I was told, to, decrease sugar, to have more water, eat a balanced diet, do all the things. But yet my focus was, I felt so miserable. My focus was just on feeling better because our family was expanding and we were having grandbabies and I just wanted to play with them. I wanted to do the things. And yes, I did start feeling better, but I was hearing people talking about and sharing their story that they were feeling better. And finally it clicked. It clicked about the sugar, about, having the sugar and how that leads to inflammation. And then that leads to the candida yeast. And then everything just explodes within you and creates all this havoc within your body. So I think when I was ready, I had to get to that place. I had to get to that place of just, backing off from the sugar. And so I started doing that. And then lo and behold, my pain really, started going away and I couldn't believe it. And I remember the first time I went 10 days without sugar and I felt great because I could run up and down the stairs and it was incredible. And that's when the realization was huge for me, about what a big, factor sugar was and how I felt. I was just shocked. So because of that, that awareness, my life has really changed. It's changed drastically. And going from that person of needing sugar every day, I needed it because I was on that comfort and reward system so that if I, whatever emotion I felt, I comforted and rewarded myself with sugar. I just did. Even to relax at night, I'd sit and have a piece of cake or whatever, just so by backing off the sugar, like I said earlier, I've been able to lose weight and I'm sleeping so well. And I just hope that this resonates with somebody because I get it. So thank you for listening.
Lori, you did a great example of like how we tell people that Plexus is a buddy system and how I totally know what you mean in regards to wanting to feel better. And so we have our focus on let's, reduce inflammation, let's get ourselves feeling better, but not focusing on our diet. Because that's how, so when I started Plexus, I wasn't eating and then I started to feel better. So then I started to eat stuff that I shouldn't have been eating. And so then I started to feel yucky again. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and how we have to, it's all a buddy system and it all helps us. And having the community that gives us the knowledge and teaches us of all of the basis of how we can help ourselves and why sugar is not the greatest for us to have all the time, which I'm very guilty. I love my dark chocolate. It's a huge, especially the orange dark chocolate. It's my guilty pleasure right there. So I'm really happy to hear though that you came to that realization, as you said, and when you eliminated that, you realized that it's okay. And it's okay to have sugar every once in a while. It's called moderation. But having the Plexus products has definitely made a huge difference and has helped you get through this sugar addiction.
Yes, tremendously. I wouldn't have been able to do it without.
That's awesome. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
So last but not least is Miss Sandy, and she's going to go ahead and share one part of her story too.
Like Amanda, though, it's hard to not tell the whole story. So I don't know where we are on time, but something that Lori said resonated with me was that I just didn't know that I felt bad. I didn't know that, that I was just so exhausted. And even though I knew that I wasn't a good sleeper, and that was something that brought me to Plexus after saying no to my friend Abby. She was very sick and I was not sick. And I was working out 5 and 6 days a week, and I was very regimented in sourcing local food, growing a lot of my own, and homesteading and all of those things. And I did not feel that supplementation was something that I needed. I felt that I could give my body everything that it needed through food and water. And one of the things that was a trait for me was that I was just emotional. My dad has always said that, and he still tries to say it, even though I rarely cry anymore. But crying every single day was something that I did over everything and nothing. I was angry. I had issues with my feet. I had psoriasis all over my face, painful and seeping. And I had an unhealthy view of what a healthy weight was, and a healthy feeling was. And at the same time, I was very regimented. It was it was six years ago in January that I really locked in with working out and eating really well. And but my body was exhausted. I had plantar fasciitis. My arms weren't of equal strength. My right arm was super strong and my left was just so weak, making workouts challenging when it was an upper body day. Push-ups were challenge, all of the things. And so in January of this year, some friends decided to start educating our community about intermittent fasting. And I had such an aversion to fasting. I thought that it meant that people were starving themselves. I didn't understand why it was necessary, what would make people want to do that. And just for the educational piece of it, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this with them for 30 days. And I am not a science guru. I am, whenever Plexus science questions come up, I know who that I can turn to for those kinds of answers. And I know enough to get myself through. And we just refer to a team member when we have something that I can't answer on my own. And so I was impressed. I was amazed. My body completely reacted. At the same time, I started a new program just to do the two things in tandem. And it was amazing how much my body reacted to all of these things. I'm still eating good, and except that it is Girl Scout cookie season. And March is a tough month for us because there are a lot of birthdays. And but at the same time, I saw incredible fast results in my body, and I was so impressed with the strength of my left arm. I was blown away at how even my strength is now, and that I didn't really need to baby my left side. And it was, and we don't own a scale, so I have no idea how much I weigh anymore, which I recommend everybody does it. It was incredibly liberating, and to just go on the measurements and the way my clothes feel and the way that I feel. I sleep like a baby every single night. In the past, I've had digestive issues. I was, I can't have raw onions. I can't do this. I can't do that. Definitely not allergies like some of my friends have had, but just that it was a family trait. It was a Palmer trait. My sister-in-law jokes about it all the time, that the Palmers have nervous bellies. And for real, I totally did have a nervous belly, and those things. And I have a very stressful job, about 6 months out of the year, and I have not had to sprint to the bathroom and leave customers unattended. I can handle all of those situations. And so my overall health, my emotional well-being, my physical being, my strength, the mental clarity that I have now is just, it's hard to describe it. And I'm sad that it took me 9 months to say yes to Abby, and I wish that I had done it sooner, because it could have started the healing so much quicker. But anybody that is considering this should absolutely trust the person that invited you to this. And if somebody is sending you the recording and you're not watching this live, please ask all of the questions, because honestly, it is a little bit too good to be true. And the camaraderie and the friendships that are built when you are coming to somebody at your lowest of lows, like Amanda was, and even Camry, when you've tried absolutely everything and you've educated yourself and you've been to functional medicine doctors and you've just done all the things, what have you got to lose? And so I was not sick, and I definitely wasn't at rock bottom, but I definitely knew that sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night was not going to, it just makes you age really fast. And I will be 50 next summer, and I'm happy to report that I'm aging backwards. This plexus glow is a real thing. It really, really is. And so I'm going to leave it at that. And thank you everybody for listening.
Sandy, you're beautiful.
Annalise is totally critiquing me. Well, because it hasn't stopped the gray hairs, but it definitely is making my skin amazing. She's so mean to me.
Yeah. Well, they have to get to us some way or the other. I really like how you were talking about how it's all a buddy system. How doing the intermittent fasting you found really was very beneficial, and that you wish that you never took so long, but you did.
Absolutely.
You joined it though, and you found the difference. And it's not just you. Your Miss Annalise has also had success, and we have a recording of that too, if I remember correctly. Been doing this for a while.
Yeah. Yes. And she too has had very few, I don't know, Sophia, it sounds like Sophia has not had any cramps, but Annalise has only had a couple of months where she's experienced period cramps. Like, what? How is that even possible? Yeah.
That's awesome, Annalise.
Oh, and she's like, what the heck are you sharing that for?
Oh, mama.
Don't worry. If Sophia walked in, she'd be like, "Oh my gosh, mom," but she's not in here right now. So we got to share the goods
Yeah.
when we can.
That's
Mhm,
right. Because there's so many good stuff.
mhm, mhm.
There is. I want to thank all my sharers so much for sharing and being here. And it takes guts to be able to be so open about everything that's been going on. And so I want to thank you for all of that. And I'm so happy that all of our listeners are here. And for anyone that got this recording, please reach out to the person that gave it to you, because as always, they want the best for you and they love you. All right, until next time, good night, guys.